A Navy patrol vanishes without a trace, but the real story isn't what Hollywood sold you. December 5th, 1945, 5 U.S. Navy bombers take off from Fort Lauderdale, Florida, clear skies, routine training mission. By nightfall, all 5 aircraft have disappeared over the Atlantic. Not a single wreck, not a single body, just gone. The lead pilot, Lieutenant Charles Taylor, radioed back in those final moments, confused, disoriented, reporting that his instruments were spinning wildly, then static. The search teams found nothing. Now rewind, before Flight 19 vanished, the Bermuda Triangle didn't exist as a concept. There was no legend, no mystery zone, no folklore warning sailors away from a specific patch of Atlantic water. That all came later, much later, after a writer named Vincent Gaddis published an article in 1964, 19 years after those bombers went down. He connected Flight 19 to a handful of other disappearances, drew a triangle on a map, and essentially invented a mystery. But here's where the story fractures from the myth. Flight 19 wasn't a supernatural vanishing. It was a tragedy rooted in human error and bad luck. Lieutenant Taylor was disoriented, his compass wasn't functioning properly, and he'd gotten lost over featureless ocean. Radio transcripts show him making navigation mistakes, second-guessing his position, burning fuel. The other pilots followed him deeper into confusion. They ditched in dark water. Rescue couldn't reach them in time. The Navy's own investigation concluded exactly that. No mystery, no cover-up, no electromagnetic anomalies. The official report blamed pilot error and equipment failure. But that report was quietly filed away. The public never saw it. Instead, they got sensational books, movies, television specials claiming the Triangle was a graveyard of lost ships and planes. So let's talk about the actual disappearances. Yes, ships and planes have gone down in that region, dozens of them. But here's what the myth won't tell you. The Atlantic Triangle, that stretch of ocean between Miami, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico, is one of the busiest shipping lanes on Earth. Thousands of vessels pass through every year. The higher the traffic, the higher the odds of accidents. It's statistics, not sorcery. Take the USS Cyclops, 1918. A massive naval cargo ship over 500 feet long vanishes with over 300 crew members. For decades, this was exhibit in the Bermuda Triangle mythology. The ship simply ceased to exist. No distress signal, no wreckage, a ghost story wrapped in steel. But naval historians have since concluded the Cyclops likely broke apart in heavy seas. The ship's hull was weak, overloaded. Wartime conditions made maintenance impossible. It probably sank so fast, so suddenly, that no one had time to radio for help. Then there's Flight 19 search and rescue plane. A Martin Mariner flying boat sent to look for the bombers. It also vanished. The myth says the Triangle claimed a 6th aircraft. The reality, the Mariner was notoriously prone to fuel leaks. A spark near the fuel tanks and the whole thing becomes a flying bomb. It probably caught fire mid-flight and ditched into the ocean. Tragic, explainable, not supernatural. What about the magnetic anomalies, the electromagnetic vortexes, the methane hydrate explosions that supposedly liquefy the ocean and sink ships? All of these are real phenomena. Methane does exist on the ocean floor. Magnetic variation does occur. But here's the critical detail. None of these have been proven to cluster specifically in the Bermuda Triangle. None of them explain the disappearances better than conventional maritime disasters do. Insurance companies don't charge higher premiums for ships crossing the Triangle. Lloyd's of London, the most rigorous maritime insurer on the planet, has never classified the region as unusually dangerous. If there were a genuine pattern of inexplicable losses, the data would show it. The numbers would scream it. They don't. So what actually happened to Flight 19? The men died in a navigation error that spiraled into fuel exhaustion. Terrible, avoidable with better equipment or training, but not a mystery, not a portal to another dimension. And the search plane, mechanical failure and fire. Sad, explicable, the Cyclops, structural failure under stress. These are the stories beneath the myth. What the Bermuda Triangle myth reveals isn't something strange about that patch of ocean. It reveals something about us. We're drawn to mystery. We're uncomfortable with randomness. When tragedy strikes, we'd rather believe in an evil force, a supernatural zone, than accept that sometimes good people make mistakes and sometimes machines fail. The myth gives us a villain to blame instead of just bad luck. The real story of the Bermuda Triangle is far more human than any paranormal explanation. It's about the limits of navigation technology in the 1940s. It's about the weight of command when you're lost and running out of fuel. It's about the fragility of machines and men. And it's about how a good story, a really good story, can outlast the truth by decades if nobody bothers to check the facts. The Bermuda Triangle exists, but not as a supernatural graveyard. It exists as a reminder that the most compelling mysteries are often the ones we solve by doing the hard work, reading the reports, checking the data, asking what really happened instead of what sells books. If you want to know what happened to Flight 19, the answer is in the declassified Navy records. If you want to understand why we believe in the triangle, the answer is in Vincent Gaddis's 1964 article and the books that followed. The real story is always more interesting than the myth. Subscribe for more cases where we separate the evidence from the legend, because the truth deserves better than silence. Subscribe. Every week we investigate a case where the myth and the evidence don't match.